Welcome, 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 everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is Less is More Coach University podcast. We are currently talking about integrity. We started last week, and the fun that we had last week, we're still about a half a way through the list of integrity conversations that I'm interested in having and sharing with people on the podcast. And we started off with the fun game of what does this really mean to say integrity? What does that word mean, and what does it mean to you? So the idea was to create and look at podcasts that allowed me to share the different aspects of integrity and to have a little bit of fun with it, and then potentially invite people up on stage and talk a little bit about it. So I'm going to start by just sharing what I share each and every time about integrity, and that's the basic definition of integrity. Nothing hidden, being truthful and honest, doing complete work, working from an empowering context, and doing very well what you do. Doing it as it was meant to be done or better, and without cutting corners. In other words, honoring one's word, doing what you know to do, doing what you said you would do on time, doing what others could expect you to do, even if you haven't said that you would do it, and saying when you're not doing this as soon as you realize you won't be doing it or won't be doing it on time. Short version of what integrity is, and this is from 2004, Landmark Education, part of their core curriculum program on integrity, based off of Werner Erhard and the professor from Harvard School of Business, creating Steve Jensen, and creating a conversation about integrity that's 28 pages that you can find at the Harvard Business School review, and invite you to take a look at it. And today, I wanted to step back into the questions that are out there on looking at integrity. What does it mean? What are some of the things that you can be responsible for around integrity? What are some of the things that we get challenged with in life by integrity? I think one of the biggest conversations that people have, and they're always frustrated by it, is why is integrity so bad and wrong, and so many people so judgmental about it? Well, I want to invite you to consider that they get judgmental about it due to the fact that they are putting integrity into ethical and moral constructs, as opposed to leaving integrity in the space of what I would say is workability, like that of a motor, and having the motor function at a high level all the way through to the delivery of what it is that the engine is doing. So simplifying it back down, one of the things that I use to reference and give people and create with people is a wheel. And I call it the integrity wheel of life. Very simple. If we think about a bicycle wheels have spokes. And if we look at it as every spoke is a part of your life, we can then say, all right, here's our life wheel. And for those of you that are watching online, I'm going to take a quick moment here and actually just draw this as a circle for people to be able to see online. And the opportunity with this is that every spoke, as I said, is a part of life. So we would have a spoke that would be work. We'd have a spoke that would be health. We'd have a spoke that would be relationships, significant relationships. And we could have a wheel, one of these spokes be um, your home, your in-laws, if you're married, all sorts of other things. And inside of the wheel for work, there's the opportunity for that wheel of work to have its own separate little wheel of integrity that has all the pieces inside of it that are inside inside of the main integrity wheel. So it would look like a small cog inside the main integrity wheel. And when we look at this, one of the things that happens that makes this exciting is it gets rid of the emotional, moral, and ethical part of the workability of the wheel. So when something happens, and one of the questions I was asked was, what are the 3 or 5 attributes of integrity? And for me, the attributes that are the most important are the first 3 that I shared in the definition: nothing hidden, being truthful, and honest. And when we look at that, I believe, and once again, this is my point of view around this, when we have stuff that's hidden, it creates an area of weakness that would be a spoke that could be loosened or could break, as opposed to when I share freely and openly, for instance, around my past or some of my failures. What that makes available is, rather than the failures having power over me, I have power over them. And then suddenly nobody can come from my past and talk about one of the broken spokes of my life and hijack me off of the life that I'm living. Why? Well, so many of us have things that we think are horribly disconcerting. There are things that we believe are frustrating, that are, I'm not good enough. There's no way somebody's going to accept me with this problem or this ethical dilemma that I'm dealing with. And as you look at all of these different pieces, what I've discovered in my time with working with integrity, which has now been almost 20 years, this December, it'll be 20 years working with a significant conversation around integrity. Not that it hasn't been in my life, my whole life. Being focused on, though, started in December 5th of 2012. And at that point, integrity became one of the most powerful conversations that I dealt with every single day, 20 to 30 hours a week, up until the present day. And the only caution that I give to people that are suddenly or that want to take on being transparent in their life, the only caution is to be responsible for the listening. Now, what do I mean by that? Is if you were to stand up in front of a group of people and talk about some crime that you had committed, you want to be responsible for the listening. If you are not able to build up the conversation to support that piece of information, it might hijack people's listening to the point, well, I'm not going to listen to this person. I came here to work on this part of my life, and they're an abject failure in that area. Well, due to the fact that they stopped listening when you said it, they miss or may have missed the possibility of understanding the potential breakthrough that happened and how you got to that breakthrough. That's the only caution that I have by suddenly being wide open with your information and being transparent with every piece of your life. And so with that, I want to just take a quick moment. As I had shared at the very beginning, this is a video podcast, and I'm streaming on Facebook, several platforms, LinkedIn, which I finally, after 1 year, if you're ever looking to go live on LinkedIn, takes over a year of going through a process to get on there. YouTube, Twitter, and of course, my favorite, Clubhouse. And the great thing about Clubhouse is you get to invite people up on stage. And if they're interested in joining in the conversation, they have the ability to join into the conversation and share, because it's a very much like a podcast format where they can come up on stage and share their views. And one of the things I love about this is I like people with differing views or similar views. I have no issues. To me, this has become a place where different is good, and it allows us to have a very civil discussion that can draw many different points of view. And that's what I love about sharing, especially on this podcast. Usually get my 2 cents in for the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the podcast, and then dance and play for the remainder of the time. Usually this podcast will go for 60 to 90 minutes, depending on how it's moving along towards the end of that time frame. And I thank each and every person, for those of you that are listening on replays, those of you that are listening to the different areas. Feel free to comment. If you comment, I'll be able to answer your question if you have any questions. So I see there's a couple people that are watching from my Facebook site and one from my YouTube site. So feel free to reach out with any questions. It'll pop up here on StreamYard. And with that, I'm going to invite a couple of people up on stage, one of which I have not seen for a while, who is one of my favorite people because of his level of integrity has always been one of the highest degrees that I have known on Clubhouse. And I have great respect for this man. And with that, I'm going to say hello and welcome Maury. How are you, sir? Maury, are you able to hear me? And his microphone looks like it might be stuck. All right. If your microphone is stuck, Maury, one of the ways to unstick it these days is to pop out and pop right back in, because it seems to reset. And it's been a situation over the past few months that is very frustrating. There we go. And is it working?
I don't know. Is it working?
It's working beautifully.
Anyway, I had mentioned, first of all, thank you, Les, for the gracious introduction. And the check is in the mail. That was really, really nice. Really nice. So if I'm one of the most integral, let's call it integral people, then you are the most. Because I don't know how well any of you out there might know Les, but Les has this unique ability to be able to tell people when they're a little off, because I have a mouth on me and I can go a little off, and he has a way of doing that in a very nice, fair, and educating way, so that you don't get offended. Instead, you get improved. So I want to thank you for that, Les, because there have been a couple of times where I've kind of assumed things that I shouldn't have assumed, and you helped straighten me out. And I appreciate the way you did it, and I learned from it about myself and about life in general. So, when you call yourself a coach, you ain't just whistling Dixie.
Thank you. Thank you, Maury. I appreciate that. So what are the 3 or 5 attributes of integrity that you resonate with, or you want to just kind of share with us? I mean, you just shared a couple of them by saying that about me, but they may not be the ones that are the most important to you, and they may be. So I'd love to hear what's most important to you about some of the attributes of integrity.
I think coming from a place of help, coming from a place of love, coming from a place where you're not trying to put someone down or belittle them by saying things. Everything that comes out of my mouth is because I give a crap. And I think that's really important. I think that helps get me through times when I'm not actually all that knowledgeable on a topic. I have a lot of clients who will start talking to me, and I have no idea how to help them. Absolutely not a clue. But I go in with the impression that if I listen closely enough, they will give me the answer I need. And basically, that's what I do. I have clients telling me all the time, "Oh, Maury, that's great. Thank you for helping me." And all I really did was parrot back what they told me. So I think having the ability to listen without ego, having the ability and the desire to help without ego, you notice there's a bit of a theme going on here. Kind of being a superhero without the ego. A lot of the superheroes in the comic books, you don't know. Well, we know who they are because we read about them, but the general public doesn't know who they are because they're doing what they do for its sake, not for the sake of, somebody thinking they're wonderful. And I hate to admit this, but in the beginning, when I started doing my business, some of my motivation was definitely wanting to have my ego stroked. And now I'm nothing like that at all. As a matter of fact, I don't care if anyone even knows I exist. As long as my work can be helpful in helping people to help themselves, then I'm a happy guy. Does that help?
Oh, beautiful. In fact, one of the things I was going to ask you if you've ever heard this. When you and I think it's Eastern philosophy. When you know the question, like know it, you have the answer.
That makes perfect sense to me. And I honestly believe that you are your own guru. So the rest of us can help facilitate that. Because unfortunately, look, I can't speak for other people, but I've been brought up in a culture where if you have a headache, you go see a doctor about headaches. If you have a pain in the stomach, you go see a doctor about the stomach. If you have this problem, you see this expert. If your car doesn't work, you see a mechanic. Everything that I've been taught was to lean on others, not myself. And after, a lifetime of leaning on others, I now lean on myself first, and then I ask for help when I need it. But often the answer is within me. And even when others help, the real help comes when they help me to find it within me.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thanks, Maury. I appreciate it. That's right. Nail on the head. And I think the thing that to me that you said that's so powerful above and beyond everything, listening is, I can't even begin to stress the importance of how powerful listening is. Other than to share a few examples of, I know if you ever have a friend in your life, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this before we move on, Maury, is when you have a friend that is sitting there and is telling a story, a drama story, and they tell it and they go to another person and they tell it, and they're moaning and they're telling their story and they're telling their story, and it seems, and they keep going and keep telling it to people as if they're not ever satisfied. And I have found out in watching this and listening is that people have these friends in their life that tell these drama stories, and they go, "Oh, here he goes," or "Here she goes," and they sort of half listen. And then the experience for the person speaking is that they never get heard. So they're dying to be heard fully and understood. So they go to the next person, and it gets even more dramatic each time. Consequently, it keeps getting exponentially more dramatic because they're never really heard. Does that ever happen to you? Or
happens all the time.
mm-hmm.
Happens all the time. The difficulty is it's almost like the boy who called wolf or cried wolf. If people start having an expectation of you as a quote unquote whiner or complainer, then most people will turn a deaf ear to you because they don't want to hear it. So for me, and I went through the stage myself, by the way. So for me, what I did was I realized that there's a lesson to be learned from this. Why aren't people listening to me? You know, if one person isn't listening to me, then maybe they just don't want to listen. But if nobody is listening to me, then maybe there's something wrong with how I'm telling my story. So I started changing and reframing my story. And once I reframed it in different ways so that I'm not whining or complaining anymore, I'm basically saying, hey, here's the situation. Can you help? All of a sudden, people started listening and people started offering advice and help.
Beautiful.
So I would just encourage people, if they experience similar things, to realize that it's not always that, you know, we have a problem and people ignore us because we're not worthy. Often it's simply just we're not communicating ourselves clearly. And hey, if turning left leads you into a wall, then keep turning right a little bit until you don't hit the wall anymore.
Perfect. I love it. Thanks, Maury. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Patricia. Patricia, it is so great to see you. I love the new bio picture.
Thank you, Coach. I'm glad to be here. I am trying to cook some dinner, but it's very important to me. We're still talking about integrity, right?
Yes. And what are the 3 to 5 attributes of integrity that you love?
Well, my first one is being responsible. It's like very important to be responsible. And if you can't be responsible, I always say, make sure you have somebody to respond. Because a lot of times people want to trust and they want to believe you. So you want to keep your word. I mean, it's where I'm from in New Jersey. We used to have a saying, your word is your bond. And it's so funny that a lot of people where I'm from, they still believe that. And they just, it's like you don't have anything if you can't keep your word. I mean, so those are really the ones that are really stick out with me. And I never do business with people who don't look me in my eyes. So I'm really big on this. It's very important to me. And I don't know. I have another thing too. It's really spiritual to me. If you don't agree with me, I already know. If you don't have trust for me, I already know. So I am very, very, I'm just so conscious of it. And I'm really glad that you're allowing me to share that, because I've been doing this for a long time too. I want to say over 25 years. It's just so important. It's important in every aspect of my life. I teach my children this. I don't want, if you can't do it, or you can't do it right, or you don't want to show up, or you don't want to be responsible, or you can't keep your word, then you just need to sit down and start all over again. Because I think that in this world now, it's needed more than it ever has been needed before. So with that, I yield my mic.
I love that. And I think, you mentioned something here that I think is so powerful, right? Your word is your bond. Woo! And I don't know about you, and maybe the three of us on stage right now are in a similar age bracket. But Maury, is that something you've heard that before?
Too many times.
And so for me, I think it's something where if people hear this today, if the youth listen to this podcast and listen to this, what they will learn is that even if they may not believe it, what happens is as you speak a word, people listen to it. And due to the fact that you're speaking it, you are attached to it. Therefore, if you are saying a statement, the truth of that statement, the validity of that statement is predicated on you. So if you are someone that is not trustworthy, then guess what? They're not going to trust what you say. If you are somebody that is trustworthy, they're going to take what comes out of your mouth, write it down, and take it to heart. And, I love that you would say that, Patricia. And then when you said people who do not look me in the eye, I'm like, oh, yes, the shady character that when they look you in the eye, if they look directly in your eye, you can see into them. The ability to lie when you're that vulnerable in the moment is very difficult. Not impossible, it's very difficult. And I think it is a very good test, especially from the sense that 85 to 95% of what we communicate and how we communicate is nonverbal communication. 85 to 95% is nonverbal. And inside of that, for me, that nonverbal is where all of the growth and development of a human being is possible. It is possible.
Yes, Coach. I also was listening to you, and it's so hard today to trust people. It's just like you want to be able to trust people. You want to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's something about, I believe it's in the Bible too, Coach, that your eyes is the window of your soul, and it's just something that makes everything about who you are, as far as the person that you are, that you want to maintain that person. You want it makes you move forward when you have good people and people that really are responsible and want to be attentive. I'm very, very, very cautious because I deal with a lot of people, and I deal with a lot of spirits, and it's in the salon. You can almost grab it before it walks through the door, like you almost reaching up and put your hands in the sky, making sure you grab it so you can put it on the shelf and tell it what to do. You don't want it to tell you what to do. So it's just very important for me. I can't live without it. I can't be without my integrity. It's very personal to me, and it often caused me to go to not only integrity but reputation, and it also takes me back to dealing with people on one-to-one, wanting to make sure that you take on the people in a way where you want to almost like, especially in the salon, again, babysit them, because people today are very fragile. It's a short story that I have. A girl came in the salon Saturday, and she's only 30 years old. And in her relationship, she was beaten so bad that she was put in a coma. Coach, when I finished her hair, you wouldn't believe. I even went as far as putting makeup on her and everything. I was covering up scars and everything in her face at 30 years old. It broke my heart, but when we finished, this person was totally changed. It did something to her inside, and I hope one day that she'll be able to tell her story and be able to gain trust again. And her mom drove from Georgia to Ohio to get her. So, I had to just share some of that. It was very, 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 very hard for me. But I made it through it, and it's about changing lives and helping people. I'm kingdom-minded first. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you so much, Patricia. As always, I appreciate you, and I love the way you share and the heart with which you share. So thank you. And I just want to welcome Alyssa up on stage, and welcome Jeremy and JY and Michelle and Darlene. Thank you so much for being here. Alyssa, the question that we're asking today is, what are the 3 or 5 attributes of integrity that you like?
Definitely humility. I think that's needed, number one. I would say, I don't know which word to use. Reliability, meaning like if anybody could rely on you, your team, if you're leading somebody into war, a team of employees, your family, loyalty, for sure. To be able to tell the truth at all times, not lie. Can't stand lying. Couldn't live with it myself. I know that. So that's 3. Okay. Integrity. I would say it just. Oh, that's a tough question.
I think you've done pretty.
It's not tough, but I would. But this discipline for sure. Discipline means you can do what you need to do, which is important. Whatever is made for you to do in your life, whatever God calls you to do, whatever your job is. Maybe I would say influence, because I know that's when I leave this earth, I just want to make sure I can have some kind of influence on somebody, a good influence. So influential, yeah, in a good way.
Yeah. There's the caveat, right? That was good. I'm glad you threw that in there. I was going to assume that, but for the people that are listening on the replays, we better not assume those things because they tend to look the other way. So thank you, Alyssa. Hi, Michelle. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? How you doing, Coach?
Oh, I am so blessed. I have had extremely amazing podcast today. This is my third, and I'm super excited and just thrilled and enchanted to be here in this conversation.
I'm sorry I missed your podcast. Oh my goodness. I've been wanting to. I saw it on your profile. I'm like, oh no, I missed it. I can't write everything down on paper.
No worries. Well, you're in the podcast. The other was the class on John Maxwell's class, and that it was great. And we're going to be doing it Mondays and Fridays now, because I was asked if I would do it twice a week rather than once a week. And it's one of those things where we're talking about leadership and using John Maxwell's Bible to talk about how the Bible created a level of integrity for leadership, and nobody really read it that way. There's a lot of people that read the Bible not for the leadership knowledge that's in it, but to read it for, I don't know, spiritual reasons and just because you're supposed to, and then you feel good. But so it's been a wonderful conversation with integrity all day today, and I'd love to hear your 3 or 5 attributes of integrity that you like and why.
I have to say integrity. I think for me, it's all about trust. I've been thinking about that a while, actually, for about a week. I think I don't expect integrity means trust and keeping your promises. It don't say anything. Don't make a promise when you know you won't, just to make sure you make that person feel better. That's totally wrong. And I also think integrity takes trust. I mean, with me, like say if I meet a person, or so like you're a coach, or I want to become a coach, or making a new friend, I want that to be earned. I don't expect that person to trust me right away. Am I right? Integrity is that person watching how you are, what you do, what you say, and how you are. Oh no, please don't let me down. He's in the window. He does this all the time. So that's what I think integrity means to me. It has to be earned. It has to be. You have to prove yourself to that person, And I think you have to be humble, which means to me that it's part of the integrity is that you don't boast yourself. Well, you boast yourself in a godly way, but it's got to be earned. Integrity has to be earned. I mean, that's what I feel. Like, some people say, well, you don't trust me, or you don't have trust in your or trust. Because I think integrity and trust are the same to me. Because they say, well, how come you don't have trust, or how come you don't have trust? Why do you have trust issues? It's not that I don't have trust issues. It's that you want to learn about that person. I get that all the time, Coach. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. Integrity means showing yourself and being true and honest and keeping your promises. Am I right, Coach?
Oh, yes. I like it. Thank you so much, Michelle. That's like hitting the nail on the head. Boom, boom. So appreciate that. And just really thank you. I think it's one of those things. There's many different words that can fit into this conversation about the aspects of integrity and, honesty, respect, generating trust, pride, responsibility, keeping promises, and helping others are probably what I would call the magnificent 7 aspects of integrity and generating trust, which you just mentioned.
You gave us only 5. That's unfair.
Honesty, respect, generating trust, pride, responsibility, keeping promises, and helping others.
So you added helping others. And what else was it?
Keeping promises.
Does that go along with being loyal? Wouldn't that be the same thing?
Keeping promises. I don't know if loyalty isn't necessarily keeping promises, because I think you could still be loyal and not keep a promise.
True, yes.
I think loyalty may come. That's a good one. I think loyalty may have aspects of more than one or two of these 7 aspects. Ooh.
Coach, I
Yeah.
have a question.
Yes, Michelle.
This happens to me a lot. I don't know why. When they say, "Oh, you don't trust me," and and you have trust issues. I mean, that's been going on for a while with me. And honestly, I'm like, praying, do I have trust issues, Lord? What? It's not. It's because I had to get to know that person before I trust that person, or why do they expect you to trust like that instant or that quick, or because you're just learning about that person, or is that trust issues, or what is that all about when someone says that to you?
I think it's because they don't know how to explain the fact that you don't automatically give them a certificate of trust the minute you meet them. So a lot of people get defensive by that and say, well, you must have trust issues if you can't trust me.
Yes, I'm getting it a lot, and I'm going to the Lord. I'm going, Lord, saying, Lord, clear my heart. Show me what's wrong with me. Why are people saying that? Why is it that I'm being honest? I'm like, well, I just don't know you that well. And if people are like, they are getting offended. I'm not kidding you. They are, Coach. They are. But that's what's going on with me right now, to be honest with you.
So one of the things that the Magnificent 7 Aspects of Integrity says, and this is an article from Eve Ash, trust develops when people demonstrate their reliability and positive commitment. Actions do speak louder in this instance than words. Trust,
Exactly.
trust, as we've all learned, is broken through actions, and few words can patch it up convincingly. Show me is better than trust me, and always be ready to account for your actions. And what I find so hypocritical with so many people is they say this blobbity blobbity blob about trust, and yet when you look at their actions, they are absolutely on the other side of the planet compared to what they're speaking out of their mouth. And then they have the audacity to say, well, what, you don't trust me? I said,
Yes.
I say, do you not realize what you just spoke to me? And a lot of them don't even realize what they've said. They're so oblivious to their communication.
Oh my gosh, I see it all the time.
Therefore, I ask people, I say, look, slow down your communication. Get present with me and what it is you want to share. And then share it authentically without expecting me to believe it without evidence or proof.
I have a question. I feel this goes along with live and learn. And
Yep.
I express, okay, I don't go down that alley because I've experienced something that doing that, or I don't know. I'm just cautious because of,
Yes.
and I never want something to happen again. That was not pretty, very tasteful in my life.
Well, I believe you're hitting the nail on the head, Alyssa. Caution. A lot of people think that, oh, well, why don't you just believe? And once again, belief is earned.
A lot of people don't think that. They're like, well, that was with whomever you were dealing with. That's a different person. I'm sorry you're caught up in. It's like you have an issue. No,
If you
learned something.
here's how I would answer
see it today amongst happening to other people.
Well, first of all, here's how I would answer that, because if we do a little research here, when we look up the word issue, an important topic or problem for debate or discussion, the action of supplying or distributing an item for use, sale, or official purposes. I think this is the one that is an important topic or problem for debate or discussion. I have an issue. And I would say, in the world of trust, okay, if you think I have an issue, I'm more than happy to discuss it. This is my view of trust. If you had lived my life and in my shoes, your view would be like mine. Clearly, your view of trust is different based on your experiences. Does that make sense?
Definitely. I just see still someone not liking that kind of answer and saying you need to be able to trust people. And not that I've gone to that extent. It's just like, oh, okay. Well, okay, I have trust issues. I just play along.
Well,
I don't know what to say. Because the person's already like, I don't know, defensive, and I don't know.
So the and not that I want you to start a debate. One of the things you could say back, though, oh, do you have defense issues?
True, that is a problem. Yeah.
And I think all of us have issues. We all have, and I would expand it to say, look, I have my points of view based on certain topics. If you believe that I have issues, well, okay, that's one way to define it. It's not the way I choose to define it, because they don't come across as dramatic or as soap opera-ish. I have workability and non-workability. I have a spoke in my wheel which is broken, and it is my duty to fix it. There's no emotion there unless you put it there or I put it there. And a spoke doesn't have emotion. Maybe the act of frustration about it breaking does, or the fact that it may take some time to replace it might have emotional frustrations about the repair or maintenance. But in the wheel, the integrity wheel of life that we started this conversation with, and I'll get out of the way for the camera to see this. I've got a wheel with spokes on it, and it's got several in-laws, home, work, health, significant other relationships. And with the work one, I have another little wheel to the side of the big wheel, a cog, the work cog. And I think that several times people have an expectation. They want you to trust them immediately. And you might say, what has happened to you that it is critical for you to trust so quickly in this particular relationship. Does that make sense?
That's a good response.
I never thought about that. What happens? I'm going to ask that question.
I'm still going to end up in a fight. I just know it. So I'm
Well,
not going to want to.
The only reason you'd end up in a fight, Alyssa, is if you make their answers right or wrong. Every time I've been on Clubhouse and we have a debate on Clubhouse, the respect that happens is because I don't make them right or wrong. I just look at their point of view as their point of view, and it may be different than mine. And if you share your point of view and I listen to your point of view, I might actually elevate my point of view to coincide closer to your point of view if you don't attack me with it. If you are considerate about appreciating and acknowledging that my point of view is different than your point of view.
I agree. Like, because it's a virtual app, I go above and beyond to do that. Make sure I'm like on their side and like acknowledging and taking apart like yes, like I do agree with, like, you know, not just saying, oh, you're wrong, because I know that ends up in real life and I don't like it, you know, over the app. So I don't know, maybe I should just stay online and in a hole.
No, Alyssa, I think this is the challenge. This is a challenge for all of us, and the development of our ability to communicate effectively with another human being that has a different point of view than us. And the ability to continue to have discourse back and forth until we are able to understand and have that integrity and understand their attributes of what they say is integrity, what they say. See, once we step into their world, we start to form a different point of view than the point of view that we had prior to being in their world. Does that make sense, Alyssa?
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes I'm like, am I treading on waters that I'm gonna be like saying a white lie, like, oh yeah, I agree with that. But I'm very, very careful to not, because when it comes to just, I don't know, integrity is very important to me, and I do not want to, like I said, I hate lying, and I hate when people lie or spread like not true stuff. And
well, to some people though, remember though, Alyssa, to some people their truth is different than yours. So therefore their integrity is based on a truth that they believe is X, and you believe it to be Y. And until you discover why their integrity is in the level of X or in the level of Y, we then have what I call an impasse that can create discord. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I avoid it, and I have. I mean, maybe way back in the beginning, and you know, when I wasn't used to communicating this way a little bit with strangers, that would just come along, you know. But that doesn't happen anymore, because I just know how to stay out of the way, or be just kind.
And remember, avoidance can be a sign of disagreement. So we want to be cautious when we start sidestepping issues or sidestepping conversations, because what people then extrapolate from that can be disagreement, or that you have a different point of view and you don't want to go into that conversation.
Well, I was talking about extreme stuff, like I don't know, say just someone doesn't like your presence, like they see you and there's a lot of times where even in life people just decide, oh, I don't like that person. Girls especially, I mean, I think it goes for guys too, but they'll just make an automatic judgment by seeing you. They don't even have to hear your voice or anything, and I've gotten like virtually beat up by being invited somewhere, or asked to participate in something, and it ends up in that, and try and explain yourself back to someone who doesn't have, I don't know, right thinking in that way. It doesn't do any good. That's what I meant by walking away. But I always answer people to the best of my ability and my belief system, or what morals.
Well, the only concern that I have is when some of the ways that we answer become misconstrued as our judging and assessing. Not that we don't judge and assess, because we all judge and assess all the time. Right? It is part of human nature to judge and assess. And there are several things that always give me that scary feeling when people say, oh, I don't judge people.
I know I
Yep.
judge people like instantly when I feel like I am not liked by them. But it's just I don't know. It's different. People are different. And I think part of it's because of different personalities. Like, I try to be outgoing and talkative and nice to people on here, but I am truly probably an introvert at heart. A lot quieter normally.
So you might want to consider that if once in a while, if we try too hard, that comes across in our nonverbal communication. And people have an experience of this person's trying way too hard. So it can actually be a detriment to us to try and put on a front.
Yeah, I can understand that. I wouldn't want to hear my voice if it was being annoying and fake.
Yep.
Not that I'm ever fake. I'll just be quiet.
No, this is a very good conversation about integrity in some of the attributes, because there are people that have an expectation, right? My mother, God rest her soul, my mother did not like me coming, and Maury, you're going to laugh at this. My mother did not like me coming to England with a shaved head. She expected me to let my hair grow at least to a quarter of an inch, half inch prior to coming to England, so that it looked like I had a modicum of hair. And the reason that she did that, and the reason that she was that way, was for her entire focus on bald-headed people was the name of a gang in England called the Skinheads. And she had a horrible thought of it. As a nurse in a hospital, she had seen some of the ramifications. Being married to a district attorney for a period of years until he passed away, she had heard about them through the legal system. And so there was a listening that she had of shaved head. And she knew that if I came over with a freshly shaved head, her friends and neighbors and people would judge and assess that she was now interacting with a skinhead. So there's, once again, integrity is everything. Now, did I honor that request? I did. Why? Because she was 90 years old, and I wasn't about to have that be one of the arguments of our relationship. And I understood in her frame of reference. Maury, what do you think of that one?
Sorry, it took me a second to find the microphone. Actually, I think Les, I was bald for a while, like fully bald, shaved head and everything. Yeah, I think the whole thing with skinheads and shaved heads and all this other kind of stuff is the same problem people have when they're walking down the street and they see someone of color walking down the street and they get afraid that something's going to happen because this guy's white or this guy's black or this guy's brown or checkered or polka dotted or whatever. People talk things into themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I've noticed now. I don't like saying that anymore. I like saying, but I don't do that anymore. So I'm not talking for myself. My experience is that some people talk these fears into themselves. One thing I'd like to point out also, because I remember hearing people talking about truth. And now I'm going to talk only about myself, I don't believe in truth anymore. And I'll tell you why. I think truth closes my mind. When I believe something is the truth, it's a fact. If it's a fact, no point in thinking about it anymore because it's a fact. It's the truth. I find for myself, as long as I believe in understanding, in other words, I have a current understanding, that leaves my mind open so that I can take in new information and adapt my way of thinking down the road. Previously, I believed in truth, I believed in fact, and all that did for me was close my mind. I would stop thinking about things. Ever since I stopped believing in truth, my understanding changes almost daily. So this kind of relates to what we're talking about with the whole skinhead thing, because we believe in our mind. Let me rephrase that. I'll talk just about myself here. I might believe in my mind that someone who is bald and wears a leather jacket and is riding a motorcycle is a violent person who's going to attack me and rape my wife and murder us. But that's a fact that I believe in that has no bearing on the truth. If I leave my mind open to understanding, instead of believing that just because someone's wearing a leather jacket and they're riding a motorcycle and they have no hair, if I leave my mind open, then that person might hold the door open for me when my arms are full with groceries. They may help me to cross the street. There's a whole bunch of things and possibilities that open up when we open our mind. Sorry, again, I do that all the time, and I'm still watching myself. I still catch myself, but I got to stop from doing it in the beginning. When I have preconceived notions that I believe to be true, I found that I'm almost always wrong. So I have adapted the way I think now. Instead of believing in truth and fact, I believe in the fact that all I have is an understanding, and that understanding changes with the weather.
Love it. Yep. Thanks, Maury.
Thank you. I love the fact and the ability you give me to express myself, and you give all of us to express ourselves. And interestingly enough, without judgment, without anything. So that's really nice. Thank you. It's a safe place for sure.
Amen. Amen. And with that, I've noticed Michael Gold. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, folks. How are you?
Absolutely phenomenal. Would you like to share your 3 or 5 favorite attributes of integrity?
Oh my God, this is a very deep conversation. You gotta understand, I'm in the summertime in Florida here, so we're chilling out a little bit. Mario, how are you?
Great, thank you. That doesn't get you out of giving us your facts about integrity, though. Nice, that was a nice try, though, Michael.
Well, integrity, oh man, how do I explain that? Well, put it this way. When someone lies to you, I think everything's shot to hell. You know, their integrity's out the door, their character, whatever.
Amen.
Because I think, depending who they are, whether it be a sibling or a coworker or a friend, whatever it is. I mean, that's the one thing I hate is just people blatantly lying, which obviously millions of people do it a day in one degree or another. But I think that it's not a good thing, and maybe they're doing it for a certain reason or whatever. But I have a sibling that he lies all the time. Every other word out of his mouth is a lie, and we know it, and he knows it. But like, what are you gonna do with a sibling? You can't choose your brothers or sisters, or But yeah, so that's one big thing is on the lying factor. That's not a good thing for where I come from. So, but other than that, integrity, it's just basically, I guess, just being yourself, not hurt, doing your own thing as long as you don't hurt anyone, and that's really about it. I mean, like I said, this is a deep question. That's all I got.
Well, I appreciate it, Michael. Thank you so much for sharing. And yes, this is one of those questions that creates what I would consider a thought-provoking conversation. And part of what I'm carrying forward into this podcast on Monday and Tuesday, going forward for the next month or two, is having this conversation, because I realize that one of the things that is missing in our world today is somebody or some organization that is creating, as a conversation and as an education, what is integrity? What does it look like? And how do we bring it back into society? And there are many areas that I believe if I mentioned those areas, people would go, yeah, there's no integrity there, no integrity there, no integrity there, no integrity there.
Hey, Coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I think, call me a little crazy, which many people have told me worse, but I think of it this way, and it's really factual for what Maury was getting into. Back in the 70s and 80s, okay, you were living your life doing whatever, and there was a certain amount of people that were in society, right, out there in the world. Now, between the 70s and 80s and today, I think that's where we're having so many problems, is there's more people. Just, there's bad people, good people, whatever the case is. But the bad stuff, there was always, negative and positive. But I think there's more negative now because there's more people. There's more of a society. And you really can't stop it. People are going to grow up and so forth and so on, have kids or whatever the case is. But if you think about it, the people around now, how many of these people weren't around in the 70s and 80s? They were born in the 90s or whatever, and there's challenges, whatever the case is, because I think that's the case. Like I said, you can't stop society from advancing, but people, but I think that's part of the problem. There's X amount of people that are here now that weren't here back then. That's why I think life is a little bit more simple, At least that's the way I see it. I might be wrong, but
I think I think you have a very valid point, Michael. I think also when you look at our social media presence and the ability to put stuff out into the world on a video format.
TikTok.
Yep, TikTok, everything. Drama sells more than integrity. Out of integrity gets more views than integrity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we have a society that promotes what I would call deviant behavior. Whoop, whoop.
Maybe they had deviant behavior.
I guess so. I think one of them might have hit the wave button. Hey, there they are. They're back. What, did you guys wave at each other?
You know, this app has gotten a lot more complicated since the last time I was on it. I think I'm doing a polite thing, right? Just, waving back, and the app says, oh, well, obviously, let's just move these people out of the room into their own room. I have no idea what's going on here.
Yeah.
I don't want to be rude, so I wave back, and then it's like, all hell breaks loose. What can I tell you?
Yeah, wait.
This app has no integrity. This is all I have to say.
No, it's one of the new features that allows people in big rooms to go and have a quick side conversation and come back.
Well, please excuse my rudeness.
Oh, no.
I have no idea what's going on. I don't understand this. It's like...
Oh, no problem. It was just so funny. Alyssa's like, maybe they both had an integrity issue at that.
Go talk to each other.
Yeah.
Discuss situation.
I think it's awesome. And by the way, I really appreciate everybody's sharing today and all of this conversation, because part of the enjoyment of Clubhouse is also it costs people time. And as we look at this, each of you have spent and donated your time to some cause, right? Called Less is More Coach University, on air now in the Ziegler Legacy Room, and creating a conversation about integrity. And I'm really appreciative of that. And I want to be mindful of sharing that, because I know we're also beyond the hour that I said in the beginning. And I find this conversation always eye-opening. Go ahead, Maury.
No, it's just, I don't know. The time, like, I was just kind of pondering the time. Are you sure it's been over an hour? It feels like about 10 minutes to me.
Well, that means it was a good conversation, so I appreciate the compliment.
Definitely. Well, thank you for bringing me into the room and bringing me up here. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, and Michael, it was great to meet you, and I hope you continue to enjoy your vacation on the beach. Hopefully it's not too hot.
He lives in Florida.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, he moved, I think, from New Jersey last year, I believe.
Oh, there we go. That's a change.
Yeah, I think he got tired of shoveling the driveway from snow, so now he sweeps all the sand off of it instead.
Yeah, that could be a little tiresome, especially when you get up in your 50s and 60s. I'm from New Jersey, too.
Oh, there you go. Well, I'm in Canada. I'm north of Toronto and Barrie. I'm in the snow belt, and I'm 60, and I love shoveling the driveway. I don't know what I would do if I was in a warm climate.
I'm a big snow. No, I'm I'm kind of with Maury. I'm a winter person more than I am a summer person. To be able to not have to pick up poop in my own backyard when we have, 1.5 feet of snow is awesome. And to be able to get a little exercise by shoveling snow, as Maury said, I love that. And it's much easier to put more clothes on to stay warm than it is to take clothes off to try and stay cool. There comes a point when you're down to skin and you're still hot.
That is so true. And you know what? When I put on more clothes, I don't get laughed at.
No.
I was wondering if that would fly over the head or not.
No, I totally got that one. Well, I thank each and every one of you, and I thank you for your contributions. And if you happen to be in the area, if you happen to be on Clubhouse, we're back here tomorrow at the same time, 3:00 in the afternoon. And we're going to take on looking at integrity issues at work and how we distinguish the traits of a person with integrity and what does that look like to each individual person, and what are some of those traits and characteristics that you can catch right away without having to talk to the person. That's what we're going to discuss tomorrow. So if you can make it back, I'd love to have you back. If not, listen to the replay. I think you'll chuckle when you hear of some of the really anal, because I'm a little anal retentive, ways in which I judge and assess people and can see that they live inside of integrity based on what I look at. And so with that, unless anybody has anything else to share, Patricia, Alyssa, Michelle, Michael, Maury, anything else? Go ahead and flash your mic as a final closing statement.
Just want to say thank you to you and to everyone here. It's been a lot of fun. I kind of miss this place, and this room made me realize that. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you to Urban down in the audience. Harold, you are one of my most dedicated listeners on the app. I think Harold is, but clearly one of my most dedicated listeners, and I appreciate it. I am clearly his podcast of choice. So thank you so much always, Harold, for your contributions. And Maury's great to see you. Michael, good to meet you. Michelle, great to see you as always. Alyssa, same. Thank you so much for both you, Michelle, Alyssa, and Patricia, for being regular consumers of my verbose behaviors on Clubhouse. And I look forward, if you can make it tomorrow, I'll see you at 3:00 Central. If not, we'll see you the next time around. And with that, I'm going to do my favorite. This room will self-destruct in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And for those of you that have been listening online, I just want to say
coaching with Les has doubled my practice.
We've increased our sales by about 33%, blowing all of our goals out of the water.
In my first 6 months, I actually grew my business with his help over 500%. Literally 500%.
Les Hill is the type of person that invests back in you and back into your company. So if you're looking for a business coach with integrity, choose Les Hill.